For people born inside North Korea, leaving the country without government permission is one of the most dangerous decisions a person can make. The state tightly controls movement, information, and borders. Ordinary citizens cannot freely travel abroad, and attempting to escape is considered a serious crime. Punishment can include imprisonment, forced labor, or worse. In many cases, the consequences do not fall only on the person who tries to leave. Family members can also face punishment. Despite these risks, thousands of North Koreans have fled the country over the past several decades. Their stories reveal how difficult and uncertain the process can be. Since the near-total border closure during the COVID-19 pandemic, 2020 to 2023, the number of North Koreans reaching South Korea has remained extremely low, averaging around 200 arrivals per year, roughly one-fifth of pre-2020 levels, when over 1,000 defectors arrived annually, according to South Korea's Ministry of Unification. Most of these recent arrivals had already been living in hiding in China or third countries for years before finally reaching safety, as new direct escapes have become exceedingly rare. There is no single path to freedom. Instead, people rely on a mix of timing, luck, outside help, and personal courage. Many spend years hiding or traveling through multiple countries before reaching a safe destination. This guide explains the main routes defectors have historically taken, the common methods people use to leave, and the major obstacles they face along the way. It is not a practical instruction guide. Instead, it aims to describe the reality of what people have gone through and why escaping North Korea remains one of the most difficult journeys in the world. North Korea shares land borders with two countries, China and Russia. To the south, it borders South Korea across the heavily fortified Korean Demilitarized Zone, often called the DMZ. Each of these borders presents different challenges. The southern border is the most heavily guarded. It is filled with landmines, fences, cameras, sensors, and soldiers on both sides. Crossing this area without detection is extremely rare. Because of this, most defectors do not attempt to go south directly. The northern border, especially along the rivers that separate North Korea from China, has historically been more porous. Even so, the government has steadily increased surveillance and security over time. Border guards patrol regularly, and cameras, lighting, and fencing have been expanded in recent years. Russia shares only a very short border with North Korea. It is tightly monitored and rarely used as an escape path. Because of these conditions, most defectors historically travel north into China first. From there, they try to reach a third country where they can request protection and eventually relocate. For decades, the most common escape path has been the northern route into China. Two rivers define much of this border, the Yalu River in the west and the Tumen River in the east. In some places, these rivers are narrow or shallow enough that people have crossed on foot during certain seasons. However, crossing the river is only the beginning of the journey. China does not officially recognize North Koreans who cross the border as refugees. Instead, it classifies them as illegal migrants. Because of this policy, people who are caught can be sent back to North Korea. Repatriation often leads to severe punishment once they return. As a result, defectors who enter China usually try to stay hidden. Many rely on informal networks of brokers, activists, or religious groups who help guide them towards safer countries. These journeys can take months or even years. Since the end of the pandemic restrictions around 2022 to 2023, both North Korea and China have dramatically strengthened border security. Satellite imagery shows hundreds of kilometers of new fencing on the North Korean side, additional guard towers spaced closely together, expanded patrol roads, and increased troop presence. On the Chinese side, authorities have deployed more facial recognition cameras, raised deportation quotas for local police, and expanded detention facilities. These measures have made the once relatively porous northern border far more difficult and dangerous to cross than in previous decades. Life in hiding inside China is extremely difficult. Many defectors cannot work legally. Some are exploited for labor. Others become vulnerable to human trafficking. Women, in particular, have faced high risks of forced marriage or other forms of exploitation during the long periods spent in hiding. The goal is not to remain in China, but to pass through it quietly and reach another country. One of the best-known escape paths continues south through several Asian countries before reaching a place where defectors can safely identify themselves and seek help. The exact path varies, but many defectors move through parts of Southeast Asia, such as Laos, Vietnam, or Thailand. These countries have, at different times, allowed North Korean defectors to eventually travel onward to South Korea after detention and processing. Thailand has often played a key role in this journey. When North Korean defectors reach Thai authorities and reveal their identity, they are usually detained for a short time. After that, they may be transferred to South Korean officials and eventually flown to South Korea for resettlement. Getting to Southeast Asia from northern China, however, is extremely challenging. The distance is long. The journey often involves multiple border crossings, unfamiliar terrain, language barriers, and the constant risk of arrest. Defectors who take this route often rely heavily on brokers. These middlemen arrange transportation, documents, and guides for different segments of the trip. The service is expensive. Families sometimes pool money for years to help one relative escape. Even with help, the journey remains uncertain. People may be detained at checkpoints or stopped while crossing borders. In some cases, they must spend long periods hiding in safe houses while waiting for the next stage of travel. Crossing directly into South Korea through the demilitarized zone is extremely rare. The area between the two Koreas is one of the most fortified borders in the world. The DMZ contains barbed wire fences, minefields, motion sensors, surveillance cameras, and regular military patrols. Both sides maintain heavy security. A handful of North Korean soldiers have managed to defect across the DMZ over the years, sometimes by running across the border under fire. These cases often make international news because they are so unusual and dramatic. For ordinary civilians, attempting this route would almost certainly be fatal or lead to immediate capture. That's why it is rarely considered a viable path. Another possible route involves crossing into Russia along the small northeastern border. This path is far less common than the China route. Some North Korean workers have traveled legally to Russia as part of overseas labor programs. In a few cases, individuals have attempted to escape while working there. However, Russian authorities have historically returned many North Koreans who were caught without proper documents. The short length of the border and strict monitoring also limit opportunities for crossings. Because of these factors, the Russia route has never become a major pathway for defectors. Extremely rare alternative paths include crossing into Mongolia through remote northern areas or attempting escape while working legally in Russia under overseas labor programs. These routes remain exceptional and have become even less feasible in recent years due to heightened monitoring and, in the case of Russia, growing military and diplomatic cooperation between Pyongyang and Moscow since 2024. Many escape journeys rely on informal networks of people who help guide defectors. These networks can include activists, religious groups, and brokers who specialize in arranging travel. Brokers often coordinate different parts of the trip. For example, one person might arrange the initial border crossing, while another handles transportation inside China. Others may help guide people through later stages of the journey towards Southeast Asia. The cost of these services can be extremely high relative to North Korean incomes. Payments may be made in stages as the person progresses. While some brokers genuinely try to help defectors reach safety, the system also carries risks. Because the process operates outside formal legal structures, defectors may have little protection if someone exploits them or abandons them. Stories from defectors show a mix of experiences. Some people describe life-saving assistance from strangers who risked their own safety to help. Others recall moments when they had to rely only on themselves. One of the greatest fears for defectors traveling through China is forced return to North Korea. If Chinese authorities identify someone as a North Korean who crossed the border illegally, they may deport them back. Returnees often face interrogation. Authorities try to determine whether the person had contact with foreign organizations or religious groups. Punishment can vary depending on the circumstances, but it may involve detention in labor facilities or prison camps. Because of this danger, many defectors avoid contact with officials and move only at night or through trusted networks. This constant fear shapes every part of the journey. People must stay alert and careful, often without knowing who they can trust. Beyond political risks, the journey itself is physically demanding. Border regions include mountains, forests, and rivers that can be dangerous to cross. In winter, temperatures near the northern border can fall well below freezing. Rivers may freeze partially, but the ice can be unstable. In other seasons, strong currents make crossings risky. Long-distance travel through unfamiliar regions also creates challenges. Defectors often move quietly to avoid attention, which can mean walking long distances or traveling in cramped vehicles. Food, shelter, and medical care are not guaranteed. Many people describe periods of hunger or illness during the journey. Escaping North Korea is not only physically dangerous, but also emotionally intense. Defectors must often leave family members behind. In many cases, they do not know whether they will ever see them again. The decision to escape can carry feelings of guilt or fear about the consequences for relatives. Even after reaching safety, adjusting to life in a new country can be difficult. Language differences, cultural changes, and the trauma of past experiences can all affect the process of rebuilding a life. More than 34,500 North Korean defectors have resettled in South Korea since the 1990s. After arriving there, they usually go through a period of screening and education before entering everyday society. This process often includes orientation programs that help people learn about modern technology, financial systems, and daily life in a very different economic environment. South Korea provides support such as housing assistance and education programs. Even so, adapting can take time. Some defectors struggle with discrimination or difficulty finding stable work. Others eventually build successful careers and become advocates, writers, or public speakers who share their stories. Escaping North Korea is not a simple act of crossing a border. It is often a long, uncertain journey through multiple countries, filled with danger at every stage. Other routes exist, but are far less common due to extreme security or political barriers. Along the way, defectors face threats from border guards, human traffickers, harsh environments, and the possibility of being sent back. They rely on networks of helpers, personal resilience, and sometimes pure luck. Despite these obstacles, thousands of people have completed the journey and built new lives elsewhere. Their experiences provide a rare glimpse into a country that remains largely closed to the outside world. Understanding these roots and challenges helps explain both the courage required to attempt escape and the complicated humanitarian issues surrounding North Korean defection. The journey is not only about leaving a country. For many, it's about seeking a future that once seemed impossible. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next stories about hidden histories, difficult journeys, and the realities behind closed societies. And before you leave, be sure to check out the other 2 videos from our channel that are appearing on your screen right now. They explore more fascinating and surprising topics you definitely won't want to miss. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.